What is up, all you GBA type people? This is Tom, and we're here with your Week 12, the final week of the Power Rankings. With me, as always.
What's going on, everyone? This is Burke here.
Now, this week's going to be a little bit different. And I say that because what we're going to try to do is kind of move through the teams that are not in the playoffs, then maybe get a little more extensive into the teams that are. We're not necessarily going to, showcase or discuss the matchups that are going to happen because we're not quite sure how us, the power ranking duo, are going to handle the matches for the playoffs. We'll discuss that on our own. You may or may not see us next week. If you do, yay. If you don't, it was nice talking to you all.
Kinda.
Kind of. Some of you are a little incredulous. But with that being said, let's start off, shall we? First off, we have the Sacramento Sea Kings. Now, Hayden and George's match was what's a good word for it, Burke?
Fun.
Quick, one might say.
Sweeping.
It was a fun match, I guess, between George and Hayden. Not much really to comment on. The fact that Hayden basically turned Porygon 2 into the new Chansey. He let Scissor get behind a sub and then set up Baton passed out for a little mini sweep was interesting. Another week where Hayden used just the threat of Mach Punch on Breloom without actually having it to threaten out something. And if nothing else, Hayden brought fun sets and tried to keep it original. Can't really damn him on that. It's unfortunate that he this season and the whole GBA thing didn't quite really pan out for him the way that he wanted.
Yeah, I really don't have anything to add to that. I mean, it's nice to see him having a fun match, and if he did actually bring Mach Punch on the Breloom, he might have been able to prevent the sweep, but not much you can do once you've got a +2 Mega Lopunny with Last Resort.
Yeah, that was a very fun set, especially, I've thought of that set before, but I never actually used it, so it was cool to see that. I think I used Last Resort Ambipom with Fake Out once. Same premise, for the most part.
Yeah, and Fizz could learn a thing or two about, baton pass sweeping.
Ho ho! So next up, we have the Detroit Steel Wings. Now, Crimson, this is his last match, his kind of, sail away match from the GBA. He's going to try and take his channel into his own direction. I get it. It's good for him that he's stepping away in the right way, actually playing his matches.
Mm-hmm.
Crimson's last game of the GBA, I really liked how daring some of his sets were, like that Dusclops set. Not sure Ominous one was the best idea. The Rose Ray was cool, being the Technician Sweeper set, and Suicune was at least daring. He has a very useful / annoying Mons. Dusclops has been very annoying this season. We've seen it, kill things with that Infestation. And then even Suicune just being able to just cause havoc if they're in the right situation, if nothing else. Sucks Dusclops got crit flinched by John's Hydreigon. The Dark Pulse was like, nuh-uh, not today. No, shh, good night. And then finally, no Pursuit on Crocodile. John had a very prominent Psychic type in Reuniclus, and even with the way that Crocodile came in against Raikou at the HP it was at, having Pursuit with a max attack investment, Choice Scarf could have knocked out the Raikou as it switched out, because obviously it had a hard switch, couldn't Volt switch. You get what I'm saying.
Yeah. Crimson's planning this week, it definitely was a bit different. I think he's been getting a lot of use out of Dusclops. That seems to be something he really likes to use and gets really good use out of it. Same with Cradily. Cradily given John a whole lot of problems.
Yeah.
He's over-predicting around it a lot, and is actually able to take quite a chunk out of quite a few of the Mons, like Sawk. Ominous Wind, not a great move to run on a Columbine setter if that's your only attack move because it has 8 PP. Instead of something like Shadow Bolt, it's just, there's not enough. You attack like 5 times, and then you're out anyway. And Dusclops doesn't have the greatest special attack. Crit Flinch sucked. Dual Scarfers in the Crocodile Latios. He seems to like dual Scarfers. One slower, one faster. It works out for him sometimes. Didn't really work out this week. And John didn't really have much for Crocune this week. Had it been Crocune, it wasn't. So, had it been Crocune, John might have had a problem with it, but, what can you do? But overall, it sucks to see him go because he's been with us for 2 seasons now, and I wish him the best in everything he does.
He was improving. If nothing else, he was actually improving as a competitor.
Yes. So
Words.
Nips, I haven't met I have Nips at my number 14. Words don't come to me very easily. Chansey shows again how it is grade A setup fodder, allowing the Shaman to set up another sub on it. But unfortunately, Steve, bad luck, all that. I don't know. Nips, he knew this is not really a big match because he would had to have 6-0'd Steve, and, Steve, not an easy person to 6-0. I don't know. Some of the plays Nips made around Shaman, setting in the Gengar on Shaman, expecting probably like a seed bomb. Steve makes a good play, but, miss because it's Steve. Really, there's not too much to say. It was something for him to try to hazard stack Steve, knowing he didn't have any defogger or spinner on his team this week, and it didn't really work for him. He hasn't seen much success with hazard stacking all season, so maybe that's not the route he really wants to go into. And really, he didn't have any momentum in this match, and at the end, he ran away from the battle. I can't really fault him because he had a Chansey and he said he didn't want to drag on the match, so I'm not really gonna harp on that. But he is leaving the end of the season, so it's been nice having you for these past 2 seasons. So good luck with whatever you do.
Good job, Nips. Next up, we have Shady New York Yankees, another team who has been kind of lax these past few games, a little bit not into it. Maybe Shady kind of comes back again because he has been, just like Steve, been around every season of the GBA. With Shady, good first few turns, just in general with his playing. He played damage control very well with Melodic and ensured good matchups early. That's kind of where it stopped, though. HP flying on Mega Venusaur was interesting. It certainly would have helped if Fizz brought the Chestnut, but he didn't. And then from there, the Hyper Voice that Shady got hit by with the Zam behind the sub. Okay, that was definitely something that slipped his mind. And then the double protect and then the crit Ice Fang versus the Togekiss was it was something, and it definitely paid off for Shady. He won, but this was one of those matches. It's like the previous 2 matches that we were discussing. It's just it was a fun match. It wasn't a serious match. We'll get to those as we progress through the rankings.
Yeah, Shady brought some pretty cool stuff. I did like the HP flying Venusaur. It shows that he really was worried about the Chestnut. Of course, Chestnut's not brought. Shady played the Melodic well in the early game, let Fizz switch around it a lot, not getting much damage on it. But he was able to put the Melodic was able to be put to sleep, and Shady had -1 switch-ins to a banded Garchomp, because who really does have a switch into that? And Shady sacked off the Melodic and thought it wasn't banded due to the damage. I think he forgot about Marvel Scale. If Melodic wasn't asleep, I think that would have just straight O-coded it. Shady took advantage of a misplay by Fizz, outraging on the Venusaur instead of going for Earthquake. He was able to take out the Garchomp really early, and that was a huge, huge problem. And forgetting about the Hyper Voice on Heliolisk, it's never good to just get so locked in on one move. It's going for Volt Switch. He's going for Thunderbolt. What about Hyper Voice? That'll kill it. And double protect to clean up the game. Fizz didn't really have much to deal with Sharpedo at the end, besides the Choice Scarf Heliolisk, which unfortunately got outsped. So, not really too much to add. I wouldn't say it was a completely unserious match, but it seemed like the planning was just a little bit more out there this week on both coaches. Tup was my number 12, and this week, Tup just kind of got played, like last week. Although not as bad as last week. He let his Thundurus get taken down first turn by a Sash Golurk, which, good on Dan, but Tup does not seem to keep his Thundurus around. Lets it go down first turn, which, again, big offensive threat, could have shut down a lot of potential sweepers, like a DD Salamence and things like that, but, he lets it go down. And he also let his Tyranitar go down way too early, because without the Tyranitar and no Sand, Excadrill was basically useless because it was banded, so it wasn't going to outspeed any of Dan's offensive threats. Because banded Sand Rush Excadrill is scary to deal with because that thing hits really freaking hard, and like, what do you switch into that? Not much. But he decided to stay in with his Tyranitar. He knew he could take a Brick Break from the Salamence, which was good on top, but then he said he didn't have a switch in for any fighting type moves, and I think the fear of Salamence subbing again was getting to him, because he did have a switch in for that. He had Arcanine. But, there's not really much that Arcanine could do back to Salamence, which is, if you're going to have a switch into a Mon, you want to be able to make sure you could do something back to it, like Hidden Power Ice. But I think it was just Morning Sun, Will-O-Wisp, Extreme Speed, and Flare Blitz, which also I didn't really understand having Flare Blitz on Arcanine this week. Your opponent has a Mega Aggron, which has, like, really stupid defense and actually pretty pitiful special defense. Put Flamethrower on it, put Fire Blast on that. It'll hit the Aggron harder, because when he actually had his, Arcanine in on the Mega Aggron, he was able to burn it, but then you saw the damage from Flare Blitz did, like, really, really pitiful damage. It was just a series of, I think, misplays right in the beginning just really, really cost Tup any sort of offensive momentum, and Dan was just able to control the entire match while keeping the differential. So, and then once Arcanine went down, Mence and Victini are just huge problems, because now he doesn't have a wall for them, and Victini was able to sweep up at the end.
Burke essentially said everything that, was pretty much important to say. Dan was just in control. Tup's setup for this week, his team couldn't really take on Dan's offense as a whole. Whenever Dan had something like Mence, Victini, or even the Golurk, as we saw in the field, Tup had very limited switch-ins, whereas in other weeks, we saw him have more bulky, less, offense. This week, I think he just kind of said, screw it, let's go more offensive, and didn't really quite pan out, but I liked the attempt. And if I recall, when I made Tup's team, I think he had Dragon Pulse on the Kyurem. Not quite sure why he didn't go for that over the Draco Meteor. Maybe he wouldn't have missed. Maybe he would have prevented Dan from, locking up that playoff spot. But that's neither here nor there. Yeah, that was probably the most enjoyable match that came out of this week. Maybe outside of one I can't really think of at this very second. But I certainly enjoyed watching those two go at it, even though Tup wasn't really in the best position to play. Next up, the Arizona Deoxys. Now, we haven't seen Nick's side, but we did see Gubs' side, and I do like the fact that he did the post-com, and he kind of had us recap, look at his season as a whole, and kind of pick apart what he did well and what he didn't really do well. So with Gubs, I only have one thing. It was a hollow victory, but it was a win nonetheless, and it was a good win to end the season off. He played relatively smart, he saved what he needed, and he made the plays that were actually understandable and thought out. I think he did a better job when he post-commed. He played better versus when he was live-comming, trying to be the whole entertainer bit. I say that pretty much about everyone that, has kind of been struggling, but I don't know. I like Gubs when he's able to discuss his plays from a retrospective rather than an entertainment-type perspective. I know sometimes he gets a little bit ratty towards the analysts based on what we say, but, who doesn't, right? I mean, what do we know? So
Gubs played smart this week. It was definitely... you can see his thought process going into a lot of these into this battle at the very least. Saving his win cons for the end. Snorlax just able to really clean up at the end. I mean, without the Mienshao, being able to take down the Mienshao with both a crit sucker punch and then a vacuum wave to bring it down to life orb range, which was a good move on Gubs, to then let it take itself down, just made sure that there was literally nothing that could take down the Snorlax at the end, and it just cleaned up. It was able to take down a Manaphy, absolutely no problem. So there's not really too much to say besides it's good to hear that Gubs wants to come back next season, and he's going to try to come back stronger than ever and really use this season as a learning experience, maybe drafting wise and just playing wise. So Steve did Steve things this match. He actually brought the same exact Shaman set, and it almost did something. But instead of getting crit, he missed his Zen Headbutt, which meant that he couldn't take down the Gengar. Oh well. Steve made a lot of good double switches this battle, and he was just, I think, predicting the hell out of Nips. Basically, it all kind of came crumbling down once he got a good double knockoff from Conk to kill the Gengar. I don't remember exactly what was in, but He predicted the Gengar to switch in, he knocks it off, kills it, and then it was just a slow progression to kill everything on Nip's teams one by one until eventually, Nips forfeits the match. So good on Steve. I think he played a really smart match getting that 5-0 victory because even if Nips didn't forfeit at the end, I think Steve would have probably just gotten the 5-0 anyway because it really wasn't much Nips could do with just a Diggersby. And I know you don't really care for Diggersby, Tom. I don't know why.
It hasn't really shown off in the GBA for most of the time that I've been around. It's okay. I mean, it's not awesome, but it's okay. It's one of those. It's more or less one of those. Basically, come in and pick something off, whether it's a return or an earthquake or a U-turn. Seems to do a lot of U-turning, or like a bandit or scar quick attack. I get that. But I see other things, physical type mons, that are a little bit more effective than Diggersby because I just don't see it shine as well as it did like the early days of X and Y when it was like, ooh, big bunny, with hands, with ear fists. So that was a little bit different. So Steve finally got a sub up against the Chansey. It worked, but he missed the Zen headbutt, like you said. It's a Steve play. The best intention, no result. And then finally, the good double knockoff on Steve's part against the Conkeldurr. He just played well. It was a win, I suppose, and he was in control. I mean, I kind of expected the Steve we saw in this match to be what I kind of hoped to see all season. Didn't really pan out like that, but, when Steve plays like this, he plays very well. Granted, he played against Nips, who isn't the most stout of competition. Ooh, sick burns. But, it was Steve. When he, not for lack of trying, when he plays well and he wins well, it shows that he's a good competitor. When he doesn't, or things don't go wrong, tough to watch. So, certainly much different.
Yeah, but Tom, next season, it's not going to be Steve.
It's going to be Battler X.
Yeah, and let's hope that Battler X can pick the Sawsbucks up from defeat and, I don't know, make them go over 50-50.
Yeah, but Steve will still be drafting, so...
Ooh.
Okay. Now, from here on, Burke is a little bit different. He has the Giantes and the Loud Reds switched. We're going to be talking virtually about the playoffs with all these teams. The implication of this match going into next match, it's especially going to be true with the Loud Reds and the Real Morel. But specifically, we're going to kind of group together Geo, and then it'll go right into Dan, because these two teams were kind of interlocked going through week 12 and now into the playoffs, where Geo unfortunately got kind of knocked out, even though arguably you could put Geo, or at least I could put Geo, above both the Loud Reds and the Rampardos, but for sake of the playoffs, Geo's going to be just outside of the loop, the same way the Jets were outside of the playoffs this past season.
Except on my list, because the Loud Reds didn't play.
Okay. And that's fine. That was just my reasoning in case anyone was like, oh yeah, Geo beat Dan, and Geo's better than Mavone. Yeah, I'd agree with you on that, but this is the playoffs we're talking about. It's playoffs! Let's talk about playoffs. Okay. Playoffs. So, unfortunately with Geo, he didn't have much to switch into a Brave Bird. And then, even more bizarre is the fact that he brings a Ditto in on the Crobat to take that Brave Bird damage and basically let it get KO'd. The only way that Ditto was able to stay around for longer was because the fact that he got it in on the Slowking, allowed the Regenerator to happen, and then kind of, for lack of better words, let self-recover by abusing his opponent's ability. And what's even worse, too, is it's not like Brave Bird was the uncommon move to go for from Lars' perspective. The crit sucked, but the fact that Lars didn't have any reason not to go for it. Like, if Gio looked at his own team and said, okay, well, wants to take a Brave Bird, oh, wait, then there you go. I don't know why he went to Ditto. I'm sure something else would have been easier, I guess, manifested in his head to take it. And just all match, he just seemed very off. It's like he recognized the plays that Lars was going to go for, but he didn't do anything to restrict Lars from maintaining the momentum. It just kind of happened. And then the freeze against his Entei, it forced him to go for Sacred Fire to thaw him out, which allowed Lars to go into Slowking basically for free. Once Amoonguss went down, Gio didn't have any good switches into a Azumarill. The playoff Waterfall, Ice Punch, whatever, was basically like, GG from there. And then, okay, the one thing I will say was the Flame Flame Orb Fling was cool on Blissey. It got Lando I burned, but that was kind of like a parting gift to the overall kind of, so sorry, Gio, that was this match. In the end, he kind of choked. He had the playoffs in his hand. Unfortunately, he just lost in a fashion that allowed Dan to just, like, kind of leapfrog right over him into the playoffs. And that's going to happen. It's a competition, you know. There's only so many spots in the playoffs, and he unfortunately just lost in a way that allowed Dan to kind of just slip right by and take the spot that was essentially his, that he took from Dan the week prior.
My biggest thing with Gio this week is that his planning just seemed off. That Latias set, I don't know what that was. Like, Colberberry Latias with Dragon Pulse to take on the Mega Absol, like, great. But mono attacking with Dragon Pulse, not great. Because what happened with the Latias set, every time Latias came in, Azumarill free switch. Absolutely free. There was nothing he could do to stop it. It just came in for free. Because what's Gio going to do? Dragon Pulse on it? It's immune. Calm Mind in its face? Okay, he still can't do anything to it. It was either he brought Psychic or Dragon Pulse. And I get why he would bring Dragon Pulse over Psychic, because Lars has brought Mega Absol more than Azumarill, but still, you never want to just have one Mon a free switch into one of your opponent's biggest offensive threats. So that to me it seemed odd. So there was never, Gio couldn't gain offensive momentum because when like rocks were set up, he had to go into Latias to defog, which just gave Azumarill another free switch in, and then get off big damage on the Amoonguss, on the Entei, killing the Latias. So I think Lars he had the better prep this week. Crobat was also just a huge problem for Gio's team, as he said. You know, what switched into a Brave Bird? Latias. But once Latias came in, guess who came in next? It was Azumarill. So the freeze also sucked, you know, basically free switch in for Slowking. And once Latias went down, rocks were able to be set back up, putting all of Gio's offense on a timer. And there wasn't really much, like you say he choked at the end. I don't see what he could have done to bring down the differential, because he stays in with the Luxray. He stays in with Pinsir, that dies. He switches into Ditto, that dies. He switches into Entei, that dies. Something had to die. And if Entei came in, then that just Slowking can come in and clean that up. Or depending on what it goes for. Ditto comes in, you know, afterwards. I mean, it's going to transform to Luxray, but again, then it just affords a free switch into Azumarill to just Aqua Jet things. So there wasn't really anything he could do, and he thought it was a misplay switching out the Pinsir, because he's like, you know, I would have lived the Volt Switch, but I did the calc. Volt Switch was going to do 75% minimum, so it would have literally, minimum would have killed, so I don't see what he would have done at the end. It was just a gradual. Once he was down to those 3 Mons, that was it. He couldn't do anything.
Fair enough. I don't know. I kind of agree with kind of where he was coming from, with the fact that maybe the E-Speed could have taken down the differential 1 Mon, maybe, but the Luxray was still kind of healthy, and even if he did go for E-Speed, he didn't have very many switches in back and forth to allow him to go from, okay, I can get out, come back in, and then switch up moves, and the Flare Blitz would have been resisted by something like Landorus or even the Azumarill, which, like you said, the Aqua Jet was pretty much incoming at that point.
Yeah, it's just that I didn't see anything that. I mean, I guess he could have gone for let the Pinsir go down.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Kind of theory on here.
Gio.
It was a culmination of just a bad situation that Gio was forced to kind of put himself in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So at number 8 and number 9, we have the Cincinnati Loud Reds. Now, we're going to talk about the Real Morel right here, just briefly. These two teams didn't play their match. Now, if you look at the matchups that were discussed in the recap, you'll see that they play each other in week 1 of the playoffs. So why show their hand the final week of the regular season to then play next week? Now, I know I'm a big advocate of player matches, but would I like to see this match get played, even if it's just a screw around match? Yeah, sure. You know, maybe Miguel and Mavone could have just kind of brought whatever, bring Mons that didn't necessarily use the season, but then on the same token, it's not like they want to show their hands for what really counts, being the playoffs. Now we'll go into the team that leapfrogged Gio with Dan. So Dan played very in control. The one thing I will say about Dan is this week that we've seen more this very match than any other match is that he streamlined this match the entire way because he built a team that is, and he had the mindset to pretty much ensure that he wins by at least 3-0. He knew the results of Gio's match, and he had the team structure to commit to a victory that was 3-0 or larger, especially against Tup's team, which is something that I think he really banked on, and it paid off. The lead sash goaler, he said it himself, got big damage off, knocked something's teeth in, which was, in this case, the Thunderous, and then went on to maybe wreak whatever more havoc he needed to do as the match went on. He hit a Toxic, and then he hit another Toxic. Holy shit! This is amazing.
What's going on here?
Good for him. He just made really, really good plays. He ensured, good pressure against Tup, and he forced good matchups in his favor. The double from Blastoise into the Blastoise from the Salamence on Tup switch from Excadrill into Arcanine, that I think that was pretty much like where the game was kind of locked up. He, just in general, he was very aware of how to save Mons to ensure the best differential. The Mega Aggron was really low. The Blastoise was really low. He did what Gio didn't do. He saved Mons that needed to be saved, and he played much smarter to allow himself the best possible situation, in this case the playoffs, that Gio kind of he overlooked for this final match.
Yeah, it was nice for him to know what the results of Gio's match was beforehand, because because of that, he knew he needed to win 3-0, and it was just, that was in his mindset. He's like, I gotta win 3-0, I have to win 3-0, because if I don't, then I'm out anyway. There's really not too much to add. I think this is one of the best matches he played. Like, he had to play his best to make sure that he got into the playoffs. A lot of good planning. He didn't. Has he used Golurk at all this season, or is this the first time?
No, this was the first time he brought it.
Well, it was a nice set. Sash Golurk, great set. Takes down Thunder his first turn. Sub DD Mence with Brick Break. So it's 4th gen strats coming out, and it was a really effective set. Aqua Jet Blastoise to make sure you could pick off the Excadrill if it got low. Granted, it got burned, so it couldn't, but it was just, he brought a not very different team, but a team that really fit his play style, and he was able to use it very effectively in this match. Just, he knew he needed the priority to pick off things that were low, and then save the mons he needed to make sure he got that 3-0 differential, and he did very well with it. So, good job for Dan, and he's, I don't know who, I already forgot who he plays in the first round. He
plays Lars.
He plays Lars. That's going to be a fun match. George. George, he's my number 5. And George swept with a +2 Mega Lopunny with Fake Out Lapse Resort. I also like the one thing I did like about George's planning this week, he brought some really silly sets, and then he's just like, well, if shit hits the fan, I still have these really good sets that I know that really work against this team, like Life Orb, Toxic Spikes, Nidoqueen. He's like, I'm bringing this because if like things go wrong, I know I can still win this match. So he went in with the fun mindset, and then also is like, well, I'm gonna fucking win this match. So the Sword Stance, Sub-Sword Stance Scissor, really cool to see. It actually worked on the Porygon 2. And that's pretty much it. Just Hayden got swept.
The Hydration Gluger is cool too. And pretty much you said it all. I really don't have anything to add. It was a cool set. It was a nice, good fun match. Nothing more.
Nick played a fun match also this week. Unfortunately, he lost. He brought Sub Punch Nidoqueen. Sub Punch Nidoking. I really like that set. It's funny. Actually worked too. He actually was successfully Focus Punch something. So
Nick is a big advocate of Focus Punch. For anyone who does not know, Nick's a lot of people's favorite moves is like Focus Punch, and Nick has always been a big advocate of, like, even back in season 2 when Mega Ball Wild for some ungodly fucking reason was still legal, he used Focus Punch Mega Ball Wild, and it did all sorts of work.
Nick this week forgot to put EVs on his Manaphy. make sure to check that for the playoffs because that could definitely.
Slop City prep right there.
He also missed a head smash, so he also forgot to EV train his Tyrantrum as well, but in accuracy EVs. He got crit with a sucker punch, which means his Mienshao went down a life orb, and once the Mienshao and the Tyrantrum went down, it was he couldn't win. He had no offense. He had Cresselia, and Manaphy wasn't doing anything to Snorlax, so.
Yeah, he didn't train his Tyrantrum this week in the mountains.
No.
That was his mistake.
Yep. Biggest mistake of the week.
Yeah, he didn't train it to see Zoroark behind its cheeky sets and tricks. So that was unfortunate. Yeah, you said it all, Nick. Just we'll see what he has come the playoffs. He has a very tough matchup up against George. Next up, we have John, New Orleans Pelipers. Now, John played Crimson, like we said, and he had some very interesting sets as well. The future set Reuniclus was very cool. The fact that it worked, and it passively forced Crimson to make switches that weren't necessarily beneficial, but just something that could take the future sight. Now, even the Credillia took like 43% from it. Holy damn. It was cool to see that, Future Sight, I think, has only been used on the wonky Reuniclus set that has like the Focus Punch, it's Sub-Focus Punch, Future Sight, and something else. Very weird set.
What set is that?
It's some set that I think Frank had at one point on like some live. I saw it. It was a thing. Joey used it in an OU live or something. I don't know. Basically, it was some fun janky set. Fucking Focus Punch, Future Sight. It was weird. It was cool, but it was janky as shit. John could have been in a lot of trouble if the Dusclops was able to get like all the boosts with Ominous Wind, if that worked. Otherwise, he pretty much disengaged it with his skill crits and skill flinches. Good old skill crits, skill flinches.
Again, like I said last week, there's no hacks. It's all skill.
Finally, it was a great play by John going for the Focus Blast on the predicted Crocodile switch in. Basically, he knew that Crimson had to make a play in order to get himself back into the match. He capitalized it, locked the match right there, seeing the playoffs.
Yep, that's pretty much it. John played a relatively safe match. He brought a lot of sets that he knows how to use well. Scarf Hydreigon. Choice Band Sock. Don't really get to see much use of it, but every time it comes in, something's taking a big hit. Except one thing that John did was he let the Sock become setup fodder for the Dusclops, which almost really, really screwed him over until he got, of course, the skill flinch and then skill crit. John made sure that once the Dusclops went down, that Crimson couldn't get back into the match. Any sort of play that Crimson tried to make was just swatted straight back down. Usually with Reuniclus, Focus Blast, lights out, Crocodile. Future Sight was cool. It actually forced the Cradily to stay in on the Sock and take a close combat because the Crocodile couldn't come in to take the Future Sight because then, it dies to a close combat. The Rosary couldn't come in because then it takes the Future Sight and then dies to the close combat afterwards. So it was good. It was like kind of a trap that he put Crimson in, and it worked well. And John played like John does and secured himself another win to end the season.
Number 2, Fizzy, Lucha. Now, I moved him. I know it's not best for the business, but I moved him to number 2 because at this very second, Lars is a higher differential. And like a substantially higher differential, like 12 points or some shit. So, with Fizz losing these last 2 weeks and Lars really picking up momentum, these two I think are like the on-fire teams for the finals in the Johto Conference. Sure. If I'm wrong on that one. Ugh, sorry. But Fizz said it best in his comment section, or the little description. Win, lose, or draw, I'm still in first. Nothing changed about this match. He beat John enough times. John had enough losses that he couldn't be caught. He had nothing to worry about. And he was in the playoffs, and the W on this match was merely a pride thing, so it wasn't like he was really playing for as much as Gio or Dan or Movone were playing for. He played very lax, but also very steady. He ensured decent matchups, not necessarily the best matchups, but they were minimum risk. The Fire Blast against the Zam, he risked it for the Biscuit, and unlike the week where he said he didn't go for Focus Blast because it misses all the time, well, he paid for it there. The crit Ice Fang against him with the Sharpedo against his Togekiss was a big old kick in the dick, and that pretty much locked up the game for Shady. But I gotta say, I love Fizz's speeches at the end, and I think I like them more than Steve's speeches during his post game press conferences more, because like he's so insulting but so funny, and it's like it's a funny insulting too. It's not like you suck. It's like he doesn't give a damn. He's flying high. Go Halucha.
Yeah, he's funny insulting. We're just insulting.
No, just I'm insulting.
Oh.
Remember that all the hatred that they had for you in the recap is just it's funneled towards me because I'm wrong like 110% of the time. Let's be honest.
I mean, just by listening to you, I know you're wrong 100%.
You're right. No, you're completely right. I mean, what do I know?
Nothing apparently.
Exactly.
Fizz. I don't think he's playing, again, these last two matches super seriously. I know last match he was not playing seriously at all. And this match, I'm like, He brought an odd team. He had literally, like, no switch-ins to Sharpedo, which, yeah, Sharpedo hasn't been doing well these past few weeks, but it's still a Monty to prep for. And not bringing something like the Chesnaught, I think definitely hurt him because he, you see Sharpedo at the end. Granted, it got that clutch skill double protect and was able to sweep Fizz's team at the end, which he literally couldn't do anything about that. I'm pretty sure the Togekiss would have died with or without the crit, but just kind of sucked. But I don't know. Fizz is actually number 3 for me. I moved him down 2 spots because he's just been messing around these past 2 weeks, whereas John and Lars, they've been really just pumping out the wins. I think he played a lot of damage control he tried to play damage control towards the end, hopefully the Togekiss can take a hit now. Maybe the Tyranitar, no. So, he loses mostly because of double protect, but it's Pokemon, what can you do?
So, I'm just going to talk about Lars real quick, because this is pretty much where we're going to end it. Lars won. Every time with the Crobat, every time he brought it in, Geo was forced to let something take big damage. Without a Scarfer on Geo's team, it meant that Crobat outsped everything, and the Banded Ice Punch was probably Lars' best attempt to take out the Moongus, which it did, which essentially opened the door for Lars to just easily lock up that win. That's all I have to say about him. He played well and see in the playoffs.
Yep, played really well. Just one thing I wanted to add. When the Blissey came in on the Azumarill, I like that Lars was thinking, like, something's wrong here.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Blissey comes in on an Azumarill. That's not a normal switch you'd make. Granted, he didn't see the fling coming, he saw a counter, but, it minimized the risk to his big offensive threats. So, good at him for seeing that. And, I think he just planned better this time around. Much better than he did when they last played. He made sure everything stayed healthy at the end, so literally Mega Pinsir couldn't do anything. If it sets with Sword Stance, Luxray is still there just to shut it down immediately. Entei, again, Lars has great switch-ins to it. And, Ditto was an annoyance, but it didn't really put too much of a dent in his team.
Now, with that being said, that is your power rankings. This is the final power rankings for this regular season. Hope you guys enjoyed. Leave your rankings in the comment section down below. Let us know what playoff match you're most looking forward to. And, tell us how excited you all are about the fact that this is the playoffs. This is the GBA playoffs. After a long, arduous, for some team and people, 12-week season, we have finally made it to the final showdown. 8 teams. Only one will be crowned the GBA Season 5 champion. Let us know who you think. Give us your rankings. Tell us how wrong I am. And, until next time, whenever that is, see you guys later.
Bye.